Engelbach from HHSDR and Jim Cindy from CJL Engineering are here to go over the bids and how they came in and kind of go through any questions you may have with regards to what potentially will happen. I'll start here pretty quick. So, Bob and Jim, it's up to you.
Okay, thank you. I have a handout here if we could pass that way. That's it, that one. The first page just documents the date. Department of Education likes to see its document bids in this manner, so that's all the cover page does for us. So if you go on to the next page, is the bid tabulation for the HVAC construction. And we had 4 bids. We issued a package with HVAC specs and drawings and electrical specs and drawings. And we got 4 bids on the HVAC. We had about 9 on the bidders list, but we only got 4 bids that have turned in. And these are the 4 here. The first base bid number is from Guys Mechanical at $664. And the base bid is basically redo the entire air conditioning chiller HVAC system for the center core of the building. It's comprised of some changes in the center core, VAV boxes on multiple floors, and then the rest of the work is down in the boiler room and then outside the boiler room. The alternate bid H1 is to change the automatic control system in this suite, this whole administration suite. And alternate bid H2 then is for the air handling system and HVAC upgrades that would address the auditorium work. And Guys Mechanical base bid was $664,000, $33,000 for H1, $92,500 for H2. Rennick Brothers, Reno Brothers, D&G, then you can see the numbers go up from those numbers, but the first 3 are actually fairly close. The one from D&G was pretty high then, as far as their bid amount. On the next page then was we opened the bids for electrical bids. And again, we had more bid packages taken out, but we only got 3 bids turned in. Blackhawk Net was the low base bid at $31,657. They also had an alternate bid attached then to go along with the HVAC alternate bid. The E1, again, was for that work associated with H1. And then the alternate E2 is the work required to install the work under the scope of H2. The other bidders we had then were Intertech Electric and Yates. Again, the numbers went up from the low bid. After we looked at this then, there was no way the alternate bids would swing the bids, which sometimes can happen. And then also we found ourselves under budget. And we'll try that out on the second sheet here. But on the next sheet, you'll see there's commissioning and then testing and balancing. This is a professional service that we recommended be done. This commissioning and testing and balancing is done directly for the school district. They work for you, not the contractor. And the important part there is then that you have control of the quality of the project and then the testing and balancing, which makes sure the HVAC system is blowing air and flowing water properly as specified. But the commissioning services is something newer. Jim and I on probably the last 5 years probably, been recommending this. And the commissioning is an outside agency, again, that works directly for you, that goes into the details of the nuts and bolts of the HVAC system to make sure it was installed correctly, the wheels are turning correctly, the ductwork is doing what it's supposed to do, because that's really something that goes above and beyond what we can do. We actually climb up in the air handling system, take the air handlers off, and do a detailed reconnaissance of what's been installed to make sure it's working as specified. And we actually let out 4 quote packages for this service, and we received 2. One of them was from WA E-Balancing, and the other was from Pittsburgh Diversified Incorporated. And again, it had a base bid associated with it, and also an alternate H1 and H2 to coincide with the work in the heating contract that was let out for bid. For both commissioning and testing and balancing, WAE was low, and you can see the numbers there. If we take base bid alternate H1 and H2 for commissioning, WAE would be low at $18,050. For testing and balancing, WAE would be low at $14,650. After we looked at all these numbers and then also our original budget for all this work was $862,000. And then the auditorium was another at $145,000. So our estimate was a little bit over $1 million for all this work. After we opened bids, we looked at the alternate bids, the base bids, and the bidders. And since we were under budget, we were going to make a recommendation on this bid summary then to take all the alternates. That way, we'd be looking at the scope of work that we recommended. We did the contract documents for, and would allow you within your budget to proceed with this work. So that gets us to page 1. It says bid summary at the top then. And what we have first there is Guys Mechanical, again, looking at their base bid of $664. The alternates H1 and H2 of $33,000 and then $92,500. So his contract award would be $789,500. And then contract number 2, the Blackhawk Nap, their base bid of $31,657. And then alternates E1 and E2 of $221 and then $862 for a total proposed contract of $32,742. So if we add up the construction contracts, as we review on this summary here, they total $822,240. That would be the construction total for the contracts of those two contractors. On the next page then, it just summarizes the commissioning and testing and balancing. Again, it was WAE, their base bid of $13,300, alternate H1 of $4,750, no change on the H2 for their total contract of $18,050. And then for testing and balancing, again, it'd be WAE, base bid of $8,700, APC work under E1, $5,000, and then alternate E2 would be $950, total $14,650. So the total of that professional service then would be $32,700. So we take that number, add to the construction contracts on the previous page, that gives you a total project cost in the construction of $854,940. And on the next page, we communicated with the mechanical contractor just to ensure his bid is good. They actually have 3 working days to pull their bid according to state law. We wanted to prepare these documents for your review tonight, so we made a call to him, and he did give us this email saying he reviewed his number and he feels it is adequate and complete. And I also communicated just verbally with the electrical contractor, and he gave me the same report. And the last page in the handout then was just the proposed schedule that we've talked about. We're here reviewing the bids, and from here next week, when you have your full board meeting, would be when we ask you to review this, approve it. And because we're on a very, very tight time schedule for this, I would be issuing a notice to proceed the day after that then to the contractors. Most critical is to get the air handling units and the chiller pieces ordered as soon as possible. And Jim and I will be working together to expedite the shop drawings and the paperwork needed to push the order through. So after your meeting, I'll hopefully get an email from Rich telling me to proceed, and we will issue that notice to proceed. If it gets them going, contract should follow through in about a week or 2, and that's when we would have our first job conference also. And then we can be starting to exchange electronically the paperwork and the shop drawings to get the equipment ordered as soon as possible. And then obviously construction during the summer, and then complete the project August 21st before the students come back. So that's a quick run through of scope of work, the bids, and how we would recommend an award be reviewed by you folks. and then how we could do the project from a scheduling standpoint. Any questions at all? Yes?
You've worked with Guy's Mechanical Systems before?
Yes.
Yeah, we have. They're a good contractor, so they'll get the work done, but we've had issues with them in the past. They in fact were a subcontractor to D&G who did the work when we did the locker room addition in the back there. But Jim and I over the years have worked with them quite a few times, yes.
What I had mentioned earlier, Rich and Joe, was that a lot of this project is subcontract work to guys. The controls, the VAV boxes in the classrooms, the chiller, the air handling units, with the balancing and commissioning being totally separate to begin with. The lion's share of this job is being physically installed and programmed by someone who's working for guys as a subcontractor. And the good news about this job is we've already checked on who those are going to be, and without question, all those parties are ones that we have had very good success and track record, 20-some years or longer. So feel kind of comfortable that that sort of the work, which is the lion's share of the job, is in good hands. And the fact that we are recommending commissioning, which Bob sort of explained it a bit, that it would be akin to, okay, the air's been balanced in this room, right, the water's balanced. Commissioning takes it many more steps that, okay, if that thermostat says it's hot or cold, are the valves moving one way or the other accordingly? Are they shutting off? Are they opening? Are the dampers opening? Are they closing? The balance report just says what can't happen in a fixed condition. Commissioning is taking it through all the paces and sequences of operations. Those are the sorts of things that also help this whole process. So given all that, we're comfortable this job will be successful by the time we walk away from it.
In addition to the commissioning agent, we'll have our weekly or bi-weekly job conferences and be watching over it that way, as well as looking over all the shop drawings and paperwork is normal. But so I think between commissioning, Jim's office, and mine, we could keep an eye on this guy and kick him when he needs to be kicked and get you the product that you're looking for here. So, unfortunately, that's part of our job. Sometimes we don't kick as much as sometimes others.
Yes.
And Blackhawk Neft,
Oh, they're fantastic. We never have an issue with them.
Yeah, they'll just come in and do the job, you in here, one word, and everything will be fine. Highly recommend it.
and this commissioning and balancing, this is somewhat a new trend, did you mention that?
Newer trend, because unfortunately, it seems like as of late, the contractors are more cutthroat, and the less work they do, the less money comes out of their pocket. So unfortunately, then we've got to make sure they're doing all the work we're asking them to do.
And that's becoming, schools are one animal, but in, say, healthcare and hospitals, commissioning is mandatory. You can't get Department of Health approval to open up a hospital unless you've had a commissioning agent as a third party working for that entity, take those mechanical systems, electrical systems through their paces to make sure that they function.
Even 10 or 15, probably even 10 years ago, it was unheard of to have to hire a commissioning agent to do these kind of projects. So it's kind of a sad comment on where we're at with construction, but it's.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, you're spending $800,000 and then you have to hire someone else and pay them extra to make sure that the guy did the job.
Right. It's like, he really functions more like a contractor, where we can't get up there and take things apart and make sure that the pulley's on the right side. But it's their job to go up there and do that, take the thing apart and look at it.
So, I mean, to take that a step further, the fact that we're already having to make some changes to what was done just a few years ago
Exactly.
might be a good example of why you do that extra step.
It's an unfortunate example.
That's a very good example, and just a case in point on here. Well, we knew there were issues here. I remember coming back after the fact and finding pieces in the piping that shouldn't have been there that were causing problems in the weightlifting area. We got them removed and the heating worked. When they were having issues with enough heat in the district admin offices and everyone's plugging in their heaters, how can that be? We have gas heat on a rooftop unit, we have electric heat in the VAV boxes because we didn't have access to hot water, only steam on this side. finally had one of, because we do commissioning on our own, but we don't commission our own projects. Folks would think that's conflicting, right? It's not really that, but just for the sake of, let's not argue about it, we have someone else do it. But I sent my guys up, hey, what's going on? They were able to prove that the gas heat in that rooftop unit had never engaged in the whole set of control sequences. The prior control company just kept turning the electric heaters on in the VAV boxes. That works most of the time until it gets really cold. Then these folks freeze here. But the problem is then, even if you were warm, you're doing the bulk of your heat with electric, not with gas. And the last time anyone ever paid any bills, what's cost you a lot less to heat with is gas. So our point here would be, okay, we're gonna spend some money to upgrade the controls on this side. That might have already been thrown away in paying extra electric bills over the years. And we knew the gas heat never came on because when we turned it on, we burned the oil film that's off the heat exchanger. Proved that it never came on day one, ever. So commissioning agent, that's their job. We put that in, they take it through their paces and say, hey, when the heat's on, it's the first stage of gas. The gas burner been engaged. They go prove all that methodically with a paper trail. They see, and they also look at how things are being installed on a regular basis while we're here as well. So they're free to voice their opinion, to say, I screwed it up, the contractor screwed it up, or whatever. And it's pretty good check and balance on things too. WAE, who's low, and Dan Cameron, who we probably deal with the most there, he's very, extremely familiar with schools. He knows the process of this type of equipment, sorts of things that we're doing on a regular basis. So we know that's in good hands as well.
If you find, if they, during the commissioning, they find problems with the way it was done, is it additional, there's no additional cost to us?
No.
They go back to the contractor
back to
and
the
he has to fix
contractor.
it?
That's
Yes.
correct. And then we would, hold the retention on the contractor and not let that money go until we're 100% satisfied, and I think we have the commissioning reports proving that everything is satisfactory. And so
Thank you.
How long, I mean, is there a period that you hold some of that money?
as long as it takes.
Yes.
I mean, unfortunately, it can be a while. We've found over the years, just, you gotta just get on them, and sometimes it can take a while. And there was a little thing that came about while we were holding retention so long. These guys decided, well, we're gonna start 1-year warranty long ago. So we stopped that, and the documents state that 1-year warranty starts at final payment.
You
That-
started that about how many years ago? 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, and that finally did get their attention, not to take forever to finish the job.
Right.
So we put a lot of incentive on it to get it done right, get it done on time. If everything is working and the commissioning is signing off, then we can pay.
And then there's a year that
1-year warranty
tacks on.
starts, yes.
Then that's when the warranty clock doesn't start till that final payment is made.
That's good to know.
There's some other detailed parts of the system that have longer warranties. Like the total 1 year under the umbrella of that contractor starts at final payment.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions?
So it'll be on the agenda for next Wednesday, I believe. I don't know if any of these fellows back. Are you satisfied that you have the information you need?
One other quick question. I mean, obviously, these bids were favorable. Is there a reason why they came in lower than expected? Is it a seasonal thing?
A lot of contractors are still looking for work.
That always helps.
So that's a benefit to you here.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Forward to fixing a few problems. This air conditioning in the auditorium. Bob can pack that up. I'm not sure everyone understands all that happened in the auditorium. We were presented with an issue that doesn't cool. We then spent some time to figure out why it didn't cool. There were basically holes in the building, what cold air they were blowing. And it was originally supposed to get into the old masonry cavities from 100 years ago. Was blowing into the crawl space, or blowing into the loft above the ceiling, and leaving the building. That's why it would take so long to get it cooled down. And then we actually engaged the balancing company, WAE, spent a day giving us some readings on how much air the old air handling unit was moving in the basement, which is far less than it should have been. It's a good combination of far less air and it wasn't being physically put into the auditorium. I'm shocked it ever got full. So
It really didn't. Who said it did get colder?
it took a long time, from what I was told.
A couple
So-
days with the doors shut.
So the school had patched a lot of the openings we identified, but we're going to have the contractor further enhance that to make sure that they're doing the right jobs that were completely sealed up tight. And that's why we made the recommendation, and if we really want to make sure this works, we need a new air handler down there. That thing is a combination of systems that are 30, 40, 80 years old. So that's why we want to walk away from the auditorium knowing it's going to work. That's the piece that we need to go with it, so.
And I think that the schedule according to Mr. Lake, we're gonna wait till the end of school before we start any heavy duty stuff.
Yeah, what we were just chatting about, yeah, I mean, we'll start construction by ordering the paperwork, the shop drawings, staging the project, maybe even a little bit of demolition down the boiler room, but we're not gonna bother anybody. But we're not gonna start real physical work till the kids are, and the teachers are gone. So, okay? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'll see you tomorrow. Get you back. See you, gentlemen. Thank you. Follow along.
Thank you.
Okay, in thinking about the budget and, I guess I'll stand out here. And how it's been presented in the past, and, Rich and I talking, administrators talking about how we want to, start this process for the budget, which started for these guys probably back in, we had our first budget
I think
meeting
we had them right before Christmas.
before Christmas, so, and then as, we scheduled these budget meetings, these next 3 meetings, how we can present this to you, and some thoughts and some options, and then give you a little bit of homework over the next week or two, and then, come back with some decisions, but, some budget work to be done. This is a budget of possibilities and opportunities. We've got promises from the governor, the governor's budget of increases, and we'll get to that here a little bit later. Being a former social studies teacher, it's that dilemma that all school boards are facing right now, and that's, the guns and butter model of, the curve. How many guns do you want, and how many pounds of butter do you want? And, what fulfills your needs, how do you find that balance with finite resources? And if we could equate the guns to the mandatory stuff that we have to do, the testing, special education, and all the things that are, the state and federal mandates, the minimum requirements, and also the butter, which is those elective student opportunities and enrichment that we all like to have and provide for our students. And we'll end this with a little bit of homework for the board to be prepared, when they come back. So those were kind of the thoughts of how this will kind of play out. We'll just jump right into it. We got 4 retirements, secondary guidance, elementary physical education, and 2 elementary teachers, 6th grade and 2nd grade. We'll start off with guidance. Here's
One quick question.
Yes.
There could still be another retirement, or
Yeah, people can retire at any time, they can resign, retire, but those were the 4 that took the buyout, the early, retirement incentive, so, I don't know if we have anybody that would.
Well, actually, 2 of them didn't qualify, they'll receive no post-retirement benefit.
Right.
and certain restrictions. But anybody can that doesn't meet the early retirement qualifications can decide to go at any point.
Current responsibilities, we have 4 guidance counselors, K-4, 5-8, 2-9 through 12. You can see student responsibilities, just based on numbers of students. Some guidance responsibilities that, talking to guidance counselors, administrators, and just knowing myself what their duties are. K-4, I'll let you kind of read those if you have any questions about any of those or what they might be. IEP meetings, ESAP is our elementary student assistance program, CYS calls and referrals. SAC, that's school assessment coordinators, they help with the assessments in those grade levels. Project Achieve, Olveus, and school-wide positive behavior supports. Those are our, Olveus is anti-bullying program, school-wide positive behavior. Obviously, Project Achieve is very similar. And the basic things of crisis, threat assessments, the breadbasket program that we're running now. So anything that kind of gets added that we can kind of throw on a guidance counselor and help out with, they take. 5 through 8, very similar. She is also part of the multidisciplinary team for the county. So a lot of social issues start hitting as you get into 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Dealing with a lot of those cutting, suicide, bullying, suicide ideation. She is split between 2 buildings. Transition of students from 6th grade to 7th, scheduling, again, school assessment coordinator, grade level meetings, threat assessments, and so on. 9 through 12, there is a secretary at the high school that helps out with 7 through 12. But again, you're dealing with a whole nother set of responsibilities. Now you're dealing with grades and credits and graduation, testing, AP testing, PSAT, PLAN, SAT, ACT, PSSA, ASVAB, which is the military testing. Any kind of testing that we do up here. Homebound, summer school, report cards, and all the school-wide positive behavior stuff. Student assistance, transcripts, dealing with outside agencies for students and parents who need help. The FAFSA, now you're dealing with college and college scholarships, college applications, writing letters, and so on. So it's a different set of responsibilities, as you would understand. The ASCA, American School Counselor Association, their recommendation is 250 to 1 per counselor. That's their the national organization that they belong to. What are some options? You rehire, status quo, everything stays the same. Your savings in the budget would be the difference between the salary that that person's making now and a new guidance counselor. But that's differentiated by insurance requirements, or that person would have a single family and so on. Option 2, don't replace. Go down to 3 counselors, increase the amount of student responsibilities. That would be your savings of that salary.
Not salary, that's
I'm
salary
sorry.
benefits.
Yeah, salary, benefits, everything. Option 3, no replacement. Again, change some responsibilities. Don't recommend this one for somebody to have 922 students under their care, but there's all kinds of options. Another option would be to kind of just realign the guidance. Maybe put a half-time guidance counselor K-2, and have that person also be a K-12 homeschool liaison, social work, which a lot of our principals and special ed are kind of screaming for, with a lot of the issues that students are having and parents trying to find help for students K-12. It would change maybe another guidance counselor 3 through 6, have one that goes 7 through 9 and 10 through 12. Right now at the high school, they're 9 through 12, they're split by alphabet. And there you have some savings, obviously, if you rehire, it'd be similar to the first option. Here's a little graph of other schools in the area. These are the ones that responded to me as far as how many guidance counselors they have. You can see their ratios and how they're kind of broken up. We are one of the larger school districts of that, of those groups. So you can see at the secondary level, most of them have a smaller load just because of credits and graduation and different kinds of responsibilities. Go on to PE. Right now we have 4 PE teachers at the high school, 7 through 12, 1 at the elementary. Lincoln graduation requirements, 2 credits to graduate and a half credit for health. And one of our health and PE teachers also teaches driver's ed, CPR, as an elective, which most of our kids take. State requirements for health and PE. There's nothing that says you have to have 1 credit, 2 credits, 3 credits. They just tell you have to teach health and phys ed. It's a local decision on how long and how much, but you must teach the health and phys ed standards and pass, and the kids must pass those on a local assessment. So, there's a whole list of standards for health and PE. Currently, how it's set up at the high school and the elementary, it's rotation. Kids have, phys ed just 1 day a week or so. At the high school, 7th grade, they have it for a semester, opposite of art and computers. 8th grade, every other day, opposite of health. 0.5 credits required their junior year, typically for health class. 9 through 12, 2 phys ed credits, either a semester of it or every other day opposite of science lab class, like chemistry, AP, physics, and so on. So that 0.5 credits times 4 years of it, or 4 times they take it, is 2 credits. Some students can take 2 semesters every 1 year and 2 semesters the next and be done with their PE credit, if they want to. So they just kind of fit into their schedule. And then you have the quarter credit for driver's ed, which is an elective taught by a certified PE teacher. Credit requirements for other schools in the area that responded to me. You can see some it's 1, some it's 2, 1.5. It just varies, district to district as far as what they require to graduate. Option 1, replace it. Maintain status quo. Your savings obviously would be differential between a new hire and the current salary and benefits. Option 2, replace it. Wait for the next teacher to retire. Again, you can make the credits as many as you want, 1.5, 1.5, as long as you teach the standards in those classes. An option that Mr. Lape we talked about was, if we know somebody's going to be retiring, you can slowly phase in credits as we did before. When we added credits for all those years up to 28, each class was kind of phased in for those requirements, where you can phase it down to 1 credit of PE, 1.5, and so on. Or just cold turkey cut, no replacement. You'd have to move, obviously, a high school PE teacher down to the elementary. You could just say lower credits right now to 1, and that would mean some kids would be done with their PE credit if they've got their PE credit and they wouldn't have to take it anymore. Issue with that would be obviously CPR and driver's ed. They suffer, which most of our kids take, and I do believe you still get a discount on insurance if you take the classroom. So, no replacement. Your savings with salary and benefits would be that amount. Elementary retirements. Here is the 2015-16 enrollments, what they would be per grade level. That's the current up to today, the amount of kindergarten registrations we've had. Mrs. Gibson would probably tell you that's over the summer that'll increase probably 10 or 15, 20, who knows, as people move in, or that's where we're at right now, and that's pretty typical, I would say. So that's next year's. We're looking at 15, 16. I've just moved up every grade and just kind of used the same current number that we have. I'm going to kind of explain this slide for you. Grade is on the left. Current enrollments for next year. From previously, we used to have 7 per grade level. If we were to have the current staffing with, if we would have had the 7 grade level teachers like before we had, that would be the average class size. Where we are now with 6 average class size, and then 5. And I kind of darkened that number 5 because I'm not recommending that we go to 5 and cross grade levels. But I just want to kind of give you a comparison. Obviously, bigger class sizes in the elementary is not as effective for reaching all students. So Options: replace both, replace one, don't replace any. But I put a little caveat in there, we gotta know pretty quick here, because I know Mr. Keeley and Mrs. Gibson are, planning schedules and transition days and so on, so their scheduling is a little bit different than what happens at the high school as far as getting ready for that. Option one, replace both. Your savings would range anywhere from there depending on medical coverage. And we'd be 6 across the board. You can replace one. There would be your savings in the budget, depending on, again, what would happen to the rest of that, but obviously medical coverage. And no replacement would be that amount of savings. What could happen? Obviously, you're going to increase class ratio sizes on any grades that affected with only 5 teachers. One less teacher will follow grade level as a result, moving until 6th grade and cause a change in schedule at the upper grades in the elementary. Similar to high school with 5 teachers instead of 6 and 2 pods. Students may have to rotate through 5 teachers because you've got an odd number. Kindergarten registration numbers, never know where those are going to go, where they may end up. You have a teacher be learning a new curriculum each year as they travel with that group of students. If they have 6 in one grade and 5 in another, eventually down the road you're going to have teachers that travel with the larger classes. After 6th grade, we look at it again and say, okay, do we hire, rehire, keep it as is, and look at enrollments and move teachers around. Mr. Keeley, as you know, has a program going right now at the 3rd and 4th grade with some smaller class sizes that they hit the students pretty hard that are behind in reading and math skills, which may be affected by this process. And obviously the SPP, that's what we're rated on. It dropped at Hartman this past year, increased at Perry. There's no guarantees that'll change, and with staffing, your smaller class sizes, increased class sizes, and less time with most needy students. And you got to wait till the governor's budget possibly also, not knowing where that's going to go, if they're going to get an increase or if any. So those are some of the things that will affect if you obviously go down to 5 teachers, one of the grades or 2 of the grades. As an example, next year you'd have possibly 4th grade, 5 teachers. The next year to 5th grade, next year in 6th grade, and then 18-19 depends on enrollments and where the 5 teachers go, or higher based on enrollments. So there'd be a lot of planning and thinking through this process by the elementary staff and ourselves here. Other budget items that you'll see, these are building and grounds, Steve Schuster. North side carpet, I've got some pictures here in a second. Replacement with a resilient flooring. North side ceramic tiling, which they've kind of done some already, which looks great up there along the walls where the kids kind of kick the walls and waiting for, in line for the bathroom. And blacktop at Perry, the parking lot. The north side blinds. We talk about the Lincoln small gym floor, which needs resanded, painted, and refinished. The scrubber, which we haven't purchased a new one in about 12 years. And the Lincoln HVAC system, which you just got presented with also. Here's some photos. They're not as clear on that's the Perry parking lot, which you can kind of see some of the issues where the kids played. Yeah.
Your price underneath the
Which one?
HVAC is $350,000.
What would happen there is we have so much money in the capital reserve fund, $650,000 when this all started. So we would need that $650 and
Plus that.
$350 out of the general fund to complete that project.
Whoops. Perry parking lot, we use for playgrounds, obviously. We kind of let it go last year and patched it, but this winter beat it up. Those pictures aren't really great, but you can kind of get the idea. The blinds at Perry bother me like crazy. I go in there and we have a lot of parent meetings and parent things that go on there at night. I think they got that way when we were K to 6 and the older kids were able to throw balls and hit those areas up there. Those blinds look like they've been shredded. Carpeting at north side, just some photos of some of the issues. It's tearing, coming up, stained and worn out in areas. So it's been a while, obviously, in the main hallways.
When was the last time that carpet was replaced?
I don't think it ever has been.
1993 is when it was built.
Yeah.
It's full of urine
Grow up.
Probably not the best idea. I remember walking into that school for the first time and thinking, why did they put carpet on this floor?
Right.
It actually smells. You're saying some of the rooms get damp.
Yeah, they've slowly, obviously, gotten rid of the carpet out of most of the classrooms, and now it's time for the hallways and the main travel areas, and so Steve has come up with a plan, looked at some other flooring and so on, like a resilient type, almost like a rubber gym flooring that he's seen that he would like to take a look at, but I think it's seen its days.
And that's a project we would have to bid, so.
Just going back to look at some of those things and the costs, but, you know, that's, again, we're dealing with facilities and we need to keep our upkeep of those and, K-4 reading series, which hopefully will approve very soon. Got the price on that finally worked out, $112,048. And again, there'll be more requests down the road to, 5 through 12 ELA, math to get updated with the PA core. As we get test results back, after the change in the test this year, obviously we'll look at the data, look at our areas of weakness, look at our textbooks, look at our curriculum, talk to the teachers, what we need, and start looking at more down the road. So, as they've changed this to a PA core and the Common Core, but we need to update some of the materials. And also, obviously, what we call the nonfiction classes, the sciences and the social studies, who these principals will tell you have been pretty much told that you are a reading teacher and the tests are nonfiction and so we need a lot more nonfiction material. And that may be coming down the road also. So we'll kind of see where we are. Obviously the test changed this year, and we'll look at new data. Just like when the PSSA first came out, looked at the data, made adjustments instructionally and curriculum and material-wise to get to it. Technology, myself, I think we need to increase. Mrs. Gibson has relayed many times to me that North Side is depleted in technology. In her budget, she has 66 tablets for kindergarten, about 10 for every class and 1 for each teacher to plant stations. First and second grade, we got kind of lucky here with that hybrid learning grant that we got. Part of that grant, which we decided to pay for the training for hybrid learning, also left money over to purchase technology for the students to use. So first and second grade, matter of fact, I signed it today and sent it to the IU to purchase 120 Chromebooks for first and second grade, which will come out of that federal money from hybrid learning. So that'll be happening hopefully this year. They'll be getting those. Mr. Lake Secondary has requested 90 Chromebooks, pretty much to replace old CFF laptops. I'm guessing they're at least 9 years old. From when I might have been principal or assistant principal when we got them. So again, that's more of a refresh and also increase. Staff laptops, they're 4 years old. The lease has actually been done a year. We waited an extra year for those. And some other refreshed items like smart boards and projectors that were purchased with CFF and years ago are kind of dying and need replaced. So to have those ready to go when teachers are, they're just met their last leg. And there's a firewall replacement, which is kind of software and equipment, but some of that will be reimbursed through E-rate. Am I correct, Mr.
That's
Jerome?
correct.
Okay. And that refresh on the teacher laptops, that helps us also with student technology, because what Mrs. Ruckert will do over the summer is, if we get the new teacher laptops in, she'll collect the old teacher laptops, refresh them, re-image them, and put them where they're needed, typically in the libraries, other labs that we can refresh those out, elementary buildings and so on.
Yeah,
Correct.
everything gets
Everything gets
pushed back.
put back in the system
someplace,
somewhere.
yeah.
So that lease is a 3-year lease?
It's a 4-year lease.
This
4-year.
one is a 4, but the last one was a 3? So then that's the amount we spend
Per year,
per year for 4 years?
yes,
160.
yeah.
No problem.
And then how many would we put back in, how many do we have to put back into, how many teachers are coming back? We have like
We-
aides that have them, and
Yeah, we have probably about 160 coming back in,
so,
and they'll replace the ones that are now 7 years old that are in the labs.
so revenue things, and I'll let Mrs. Leghorn and Mrs. Masiosi help me out here if I screw anything up, but the MIU 4 multi-disability class here that we have in Lincoln is closing. And along with that, and looking at our enrollments for multidisciplinary and so on, autistic support, life skills support class, we're recommending that we open one here in the district in that same classroom. What it will do is increase our least restricted environment, which, if you don't know, we get rated on, and if you have too many students, not in their least restricted environment, you've got to come up with plans and so on. So all these students that we're sending out will be able to come back in. So it'll decrease our out-of-district placement for these students that are autistic support and life skills support, and prevent any new students that come in, we can house them here. The cost analysis for 3 years right now, 9 students that are out of district placement, costing the district $1.2 million. If we house it here, we'd have to hire 3 staff at that cost of $540,000, and our savings over 3 years would be around $581,000. You can see the year-to-year breakdown by hosting this classroom here in the district with mostly our students. So we would need to hire a special education teacher, an instructional aide, and a nurse, and also obviously instructional materials. Anything I'm missing, Mrs. Leghorn?
How many will we be able to house?
I mean,
It depends on the ratio. A full-time autistic support classroom, maximum is 8 students. Right now, we're looking at 4 of those 9 students being autistic support, 4 of them being life skill support, and 1 student being a multiple disability support student. That would suffice and be the max capacity with the state ratios. MVS support, you're only permitted to have 8 students per classroom. Life skills, secondary, you can have 15 per classroom. So you have to look at the full-time equivalency of each student per teacher ratio to make sure that there's a certain amount of students per teacher, and you can't go over that cap. Right now, within that classroom, we are at that cap.
So the one teacher that we would be hiring would cover the 9 kids that we have right now. If we got another child in, we'd be forced to hire right off the bat.
No. Honestly, what I'm looking at is as students, our autistic support classroom is full. And so as students graduate from that classroom, being able to support our autistic support students that are higher functioning in that classroom, but also looking at the students who are coming up, being able to support them in this classroom. So I've gone out further than 3 years, and we have at least a 5-year capacity, unless students move in, and that does happen. So being able to look at the needs within district will be able to be fulfilled within this classroom, as well as in our autistic support classroom that's currently here.
And the one at Northside. We've consistently had those classrooms be full. I mean, we've not had a space in either of those classrooms
Since they've been open.
since we opened, so.
There's a lot of
And,
need.
I mean, just knowing, autism is 1 in 68 kids now, I think this isn't a need that's going away.
As well as knowing the students within our district, we do have a lot of high need students that require the life skills support.
Some budget information, just to kind of refresh a little bit, 2014-15 budget, 26.9. General fund balance, 5.7 million. 2014-15 revenues, 25.9 million. 2014-15 expenditures, 26.988, including a $450,000 budgetary reserve. We did increase taxes last year, 0.75 mils, generated approximately 321,000. As you know, 2015-16 possible will be a 0.7808 possible increase, which would generate $344,000. Just to kind of give you an idea for optional revenues.
Where are we at with our budget right now? Do we look like we're under for the
We'll
end of the
get-
year? Oh, it's coming.
Slow down. Good. Just kind of history, or what a allowable 0.708 millage increase would do. There's assessed values. The median is in Ellwood City 67,000. So you can see increase per year, per month, or the value of those houses on a possible millage increase. And that's to the index, correct? That's not.
And that's the index, well, we did ask for referendum exceptions, so there's some paperwork I fill out, or actually an internet website that allows us to go beyond the index. And that's what we did, we filed for the exceptions. We got a little bit of an addition, I believe, for retirement, because the retirement increase is so large. And I can't recall whether we got any for the special ed, but we are a little bit above the 2.8% index.
History, for those of you who've been here and those of you who are kind of new, is, there's kind of the history of millage increases we've had. I put the question marks, 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, not knowing obviously governor's budgets and how that's going to play out down the road. Speaking of the governor's budget, speaking to a lot of superintendents and the MIU4 superintendents and directors, kind of recommendation is to hold harmless, kind of plan your budget with no governor's increase. This has been the conundrum. I've been, getting letters as superintendent from both the Republicans and the governor and the, Secretary of Education. May 15th, by May 15th, all school districts have to submit a basic education accountability plan submitted on e-grants. For the portion that exceeds the index, which for us it would be about $99,000. There's 14 eligible uses, which I'll show you in a second, linked to 9 different student performance outcomes. So this is the money that would be above the index that we would get. The Republicans, we've been getting letters telling us, don't plan on it, don't plan on spending it, and the governor's telling us to make a plan to spend this money. So that's the conundrum that superintendents and districts are in right now, not knowing what the budget's going to be and what our allocation is going to be, or increases. Possible increase for Ellwood City Area School District total, $419,120 if everything flies through the governor's budget, which they kind of said that it's a Jenga type budget. You know the game Jenga, one piece falls out, it could all fall apart. So
And that 400, I'm sorry, Joe, that
Right.
419,000 is only basic ed. So there would be some increases for special ed, transportation, retirement, but that's the basic ed portion. Sorry.
that's all right. Here's the evidence-based options that by May 15th, they're probably not very big on your handout, but you can kind of read them for your homework. I highlighted some of the items that could affect us, that $99,000, full-day kindergarten. We can offset some costs there. Classroom materials, the new textbooks, $99,000 of it could go towards the new textbooks that we're ordering. Human services, possibly the salary of a half-time guidance counselor, half-time social work type homeschool visitor. Dual enrollment. Not sure if they're meaning that we can actually give that to students to help offset costs for dual enrollment, which what they did before, when they first came out with dual enrollment, they gave us a ton of money. And Mr. Lake will tell you, we had tons of kids taking dual enrollment, and we paid for their college classes basically. But when they cut that, we've had less and less students obviously take the dual enrollment classes through BC3 because now it's pretty much charged off to the parent. So I'm not 100% sure if that means, hey, you could take that $99,000 or you want to take $40,000 of it and use it for dual enrollment and offset kids' costs for taking those classes. That's something I don't know. Personalized help and intervention for struggling students. Obviously, we have tutors at every building, RTI tutors, so it could offset those costs. Career and technical education aligned to STEM and other high demand and emerging occupations. You know, we're going to request a STEM teacher at Perry, maybe STEM teacher up here at the high school eventually. And then obviously 14, the cuts that were made for all these districts, when the cuts that they've had to restore anything or anybody that you were made to do because of budget cuts in the past from the state. So those are the 14 evidence-based options that we can spend that alleged $99,000 on, and they have to be tied to these measures. So you've got to pick one of those or several of those and how it's going to increase students' reading ability by 3rd grade, or on track to graduate, or improve your graduation or dropout rates, truancy rates, closing achievement gaps, successful completion for ELL students, any English language learners, students going on to college, training, or apprenticeships, the matriculation rate for those, and then completion of those, and then employment rates and wages for students who eventually graduate. So you got to tie those 14 items, whatever you choose, and then also how it's going to increase. So $99,000 of that the governor's saying. For us, we'd have to kind of sit down with administration and get a plan together where we want to spend it. It could be real easy. It could be, we're going to take the $99,000 and pay for the new textbooks that we're going to, we'd like to for K to 4. So that kind of simple way to do it. So here's budget overview, Mr. Charlie. This will give you the, as of today, and I'll kind of let Mr. Zerone chime in also here because he gave me this slide. Total estimated expenses, $27.9 million, less the budgetary reserve for unanticipated expenses. Total expenditures, estimated expenditures less the budgetary reserve, $27.4. Preliminary revenue estimates with no tax increase or additional state subsidy. So we went just straight across.
And that's basic ed stuff, yeah, I did include the retirement and.
Right. That 419, correct?
Yeah, I did include the 419.
Projected deficit, 1.3 million, less the one-time HVAC project funded with fund balance. Total deficit, 959,000. Some homework. Obviously, we're not going to get all this done tonight, and hammer out a $27 million budget in one night. We do have 2 more meetings. My thoughts, being a former teacher, is kind of review the presentation. You have a copy of it. Mr. Zerone here is going to give you the details also of the budget. Look at them, make notes. Any questions after tonight? Obviously, we'll stay here as long as we can to answer questions. Next Wednesday, go over the details and then make those decisions on what gets in, what gets left out. May 6th is another budget meeting, final review, make sure we're all on the same page, make sure we're good. And then May 14th would be the voting meeting, and then it would get finally approved in June. Questions? Again, I thought we would do this a little bit differently than Rich kind of going through line by line right off the bat. We all sit around and go, what does that mean? That's kind of a overall, kind of give you a big picture of budget and where we are. He'll give you the details now. He'll kind of go over through some things of what he has calculated, and any questions we'll kind of answer. These guys are here to answer also. But there's options. Like I said, there's opportunities in this budget. There's possibilities. There's also status quo, maintain. There's get rid of everything. of retirements and so on. So obviously, it's that guns and butter, mentality of, model of, how many guns do you want? How much butter do you want? Can we find a balance, of that mix? So hopefully that kind of gave you a little bit of an idea of where we are. And I'll open up to any questions. Yes, sir.
I like that presentation. Thank you for that. And is the administration ready to make any recommendations on staff?
Next slide. Educational recommendations, some guns and some butter. Recommending that we replace the guidance counselor, go to 5 teachers at the 4th grade level, replace the physical education teacher, and also, and I'll show you my next slide, I think we are way behind in preparing students for 21st century skills, and we have the opportunity right now to start that at Perry with that $50,000 grant that we got for innovation, to hire a teacher down there. So really it would be replacing all 4 positions, just moving one from the regular grade level to a position that we feel that we could utilize greatly at that building. And how that ties into a future plan, we feel we're behind in STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. A lot of school districts are moving that way. They're funding that kind of education. This year we've got that plan going at Perry, starting there. That $50,000 grant for all the equipment and so on. Also this year, with what Mr. Sovich is doing, getting the funding this year, start funding and equip a maker lab at Lincoln through grants and donations. Change that library, get the plans together to change the high school library to a learning commons in room 203, and that back room back in the library that doesn't get utilized, to an area where teachers can take kids, they can have presentations, kids can collaborate, to make it a high-tech learning space for teachers and students here at the high school, and make that maker space connected right to it in lab 203. Eventually, and Mr. Keeley said, we're going to come to you too to continue that program at Hartman also at some point. So next year, budgetary, looking at Hartman Maker Lab and continuing the same process. And then for 16, 17, plan to hire a STEM teacher here at the high school, engineering classes. So the goal is to have a 3 through 8 STEM experience for kids where they dabble in it, they experience it, they work with it. And then by the time they get to the high school, 9 through 12, true engineering options for kids and classes. So that's the plan, that's the recommendation. I know it 5 teachers at 4th grade level, but again, I want to go back to this slide that I kind of said, take it for what it is. We don't want 25, 26, 27 kids in a class, but I think we can live with 23.4 next year on average in 4th grade. Right now, it would be 19.5. So looking at class sizes, looking at where we want to take the school district, again, it's a little bit of guns and a little bit of butter. I know it's not, I'd love to have both. I'd love to have 6 teachers at every grade level, but again, looking at possibilities, 117 students in 4th grade, then 5th grade the next year, and 6th grade the following year. That gives us some time to reevaluate and get STEM stuff going, and get new future and plans for some opportunities for students to kind of create for them. Yeah.
So the STEM package that you did, that's in addition to the $1 million shortfall that we already have, right?
No.
Okay, we're going to get into that.
Oh, okay, go ahead. I don't want
I'm sorry. Go ahead, ask
The
that
cost
question.
of this is in addition to the $1 million that we're already
Well, if you
short.
you're going to hire 4 teachers. Our recommendation is you hire 4 teachers next year. Just one is a STEM teacher.
What
So you're
happened to the
replaced.
aide that we were talking before and moved to a teacher?
Which aid?
When we were talking about this STEM program before, when Frank brought it up,
We looked,
it
we
was
thought
an aide,
about
now it's
that.
a teacher?
Okay, but we then thought of that person really can't instruct. If you're an aide, you can't be an instructor. We got burned on that before, where an aide can't do any teaching because then they become a teacher. And they're dealing with unions and PSCA and SEIU. So we thought if we're going to do it, let's do it right with a full-time teacher down there that would handle that lab, help the teachers with their students down there. So we talked about, Rich and I talked about also, half-time aid. If the person could be, we bring them in to teach at Perry and then also work and help Ellen out in the summer. But then you're crossing unions and crossing, so we kind of thought about it all, but we thought the best way to go is, if we're going to do it, let's do it. Let's pull the trigger on it and start a new process, starting at the younger grades and working our way up to the high school with kids over the next 3 years. We have the plan in place.
So there's nothing going on, nothing's changed with the high school, getting that, Mr. Silver was supposed to be meeting.
Well, what we would do this year, we thought was, and I asked Mr. Sovich to put a plan together, is over the 15-16 school year is get the lab ready, get the equipment in there, get the teacher hired at the end of next year for the 16-17 school year. So they would start then.
Why so long? We've been
Well,
doing
just,
it
well,
for 2 years.
Well, again, it's getting it all in place, getting the equipment, getting everything lined up, having a thought, having a process. So really, the kids are getting the experiences now at Perry, hopefully at Harton the following years, and then Lincoln they'll just step right in, get more experience in 7th and 8th grade, and then be able to take classes. And that, yes.
What would the role of the librarian do, librarian do if you're moving the lab with libraries?
Well, there'd still be, the way we're kind of looking at it is half library, half learning commons. So there'd still be books, there'd still be e-books, there'd still be research to be done, and also help out in that area also. So kind of changing her into a true media instructor, research, getting involved in these classes, getting involved in the things that that are going on. So it would be a combination of those. That position wouldn't go anywhere. It's just we would change how that operates. Teacher would still bring kids in there. They would still that whole process.
So you'd have 2 teachers in the library.
Well, you have that 203 lab, that lab that's connected to it. There's a computer lab that's connected to the library. That would be like the true research STEM, where all the equipment, 3D printer and so on would be. So you have you have that back room also that's unused. If you've ever been in the library, there's a whole back area behind the drop-down screen, the glass. It's just a library. Nobody uses it. So we talked about renovating that also. Small group instruction. Teach student presentations. I've asked Mrs. Parkinson to start planning on that, looking at that, looking at other schools that have learning commons, come up with a plan how we can renovate that library. So we want to offer these things and be cutting edge and provide the opportunities for students. We've got to be forward thinking also. So.
Joe, out of the $50,000 grant, how much did it cost to equip the lab?
Perry?
Okay.
All of it. That's where I took all the funds and directed it towards basic equipment for the lab.
Did you get everything you needed, or you still had to purchase items?
Truth be told, I feel like the $50,000 got me a starter kit, and I'm meeting with some people from Slippery Rock, just so I can sort of get my head around what kind of teacher I need for in there, because this is a whole new game. Sort of blazing a trail here, and I got a lot to wrap my head around. So it feels to me like a starter kit. I'm going to integrate the things that Mr. Scotchless is teaching in computer class with the things that can happen in the maker space, especially with the robotics and the programming and whatnot. But again, it's just that, in my mind, it's a starter kit, it's a beginning, it's a great start. It's something that's gonna have to be added to annually, but this really helps us to launch. So I feel confident in the equipment we would have for next year.
Isn't it possible to have, I mean, like, we have Mr. Scotchless going in there now as a computer. Can't he learn how to use some of that equipment? And can't we train our teachers just to use that as a special instead of dedicating a teacher to this? Because now we're just learning. And the fact is, you have a bunch of 3rd and 4th graders who are going to be playing with some pretty high-tech technology, but you gotta start. I mean, these kids, some of them, we're having problems teaching them to read. So why aren't we starting a little more basic here with getting them off the ground? I mean, like, I think a 3D printer is an awesome thing, but I think when you put it in the hands of a 3rd grader, you're gonna be making a trinket that goes home and gets thrown in the garbage. But that costs money, and it's not that I'm against it, I would love to see it, and if we had the funds for doing everything, it would be great. But since we don't, and since we have to watch everything, can't we start at that point while we have the lab? Why can't we train our teachers to use it so that they can be doing little bits and we can learn how to use it as we go? And then eventually, I mean, I don't know, we're talking about, you know, getting these kids up to speed with, like I said, reading, and I just can't see putting a teacher in a 3rd grade class. That's all. I mean, my son would love it. It's not that I'm against it, but I just don't see that we have the resources to put there when we have other things that we need to be looking at. I mean, is it possible to train our teachers and to train Mr. Scotchless on a couple of the pieces of equipment and let them kind of utilize it at their own?
Mr. Scotchless also teaches 5th and 6th grade and so
Right.
all the way to 2nd grade. So he's rotating through all of those classes and having to man a new lab and, you know.
So are you making this, I mean, I guess I'll just take it, let me ask you this. When you talk about having this teacher there, so now is this teacher going to teach a class to every one of the 3rd and 4th grade classes? Is that your intention?
You're asking a lot of questions.
Sorry.
I did dedicate some of that $50,000 to professional development for staff. I'm going to contract with the Pittsburgh Children's Museum. They are the experts in the field to come out and train staff. Again, logistics of that, I don't know exactly, but that's kind of the plan with that. I don't exactly see this makerspace being for any particular group of kids, but I can see it being for the kids who are having trouble reading, getting them the opportunity to have hands-on experiences, to become motivated in school, to have an interest and a passion that leads them to want to read. I want to figure something out. I want to do this for me. Not because Mr. Keeley told me to do it, not because Mr. Gustinelli told me to do it. I want to do this for me. So I'm going to read. Because one of the things I put in there also was a subscription to a periodical about making. And I want kids to be able to read that. And it's going to be sitting in there on a kind of a coffee table in that room. And I want kids to be able to read and figure stuff out on their own. So this is going to develop passions that go beyond the typical reading teacher. That's what's in my head. So yeah, I'd love to have another teacher to help me teach reading, but I think this gives us a different angle, and it helps to motivate, and it does the right things internally for kids.
Well, I agree with you, but I don't think you have to have a STEM teacher to do that. I mean, teachers can themselves, I mean, look at some of our teachers and what they've done with what they have in their classroom. That's about the teacher inspiring by bringing in hands-on projects and teaching out of the box and not just teaching with a book. I mean, I think that can be done in lots of different ways. I agree 100%. I just wonder what's this
I think
teacher
our
gonna
kids
do?
get a very inconsistent experience then. We have so many different kids and so many different teachers with such varying levels of skills and skill sets then I just don't think our kids would get the experience that they would need. My idea behind this lab is there's multiple sort of angles to it. I wanted to sort of operate in the capacity that a library operates at the high school almost. You can schedule a class in there, teacher can schedule a class in there for a project. Students can drop in to work on stuff, whether it's for a class project or during some free time before school, after school, when their work's done. So I just think there are too many things that get precluded when we say, well, the teachers we already have can do it.
My 2 cents, I have to agree with Mr. Keeley. I think you're gonna have this shiny new piece of equipment, and it's just gonna get underutilized if somebody isn't dedicated to working on it and building those type of activities. I just think that teachers will have the best intentions, but they'll get caught up in other day-to-day stuff, and it'll get basically start collecting dust.
Now we're talking about putting a teacher into some, and we're talking about hiring a teacher in a position that we have other places that they're needed. Can we really afford to put a STEM teacher in our 3rd grade? We have to replace that one elementary teacher, which we may have to do in 3 years. And plus, we're gonna be hiring one at the high school in a couple of years. I mean, we gotta look at the full plan here now, and I mean, like I said, it's not that I'm against STEM by any means. I love it. I love the idea, and I just think in 3rd grade that you're putting a lot into some pretty young kids. Where I would love to see it have already started in the high school, where you have these kids even more so in need of extracurricular things that they're looking for. And we have such a limited funds that we have to be very careful and
The hiring of the teacher, the elementary and STEM teacher, part of your overall long strategy plan.
Sure, I mean, if we start experiences in the younger grades, in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, give them experiences here in 7th and 8th grade, which we do. Kids take, exploratory, technology classes. These are computers, whatever. And you include that now, possibilities of robotics, 3D printing. They get a little taste of it. By the time they get in 9th grade, we talk about creating engineering 1, engineering 2, engineering 3, engineering 4. So now you have a teacher teaching engineering classes through this lab, through AutoCAD, through designing and so on. So true science, technology, engineering, and math. So schools are doing it.
So your long-term plan as opposed to hiring a teacher for high school right now,
Right.
just jumping into that.
Right.
5-10 years down the road.
My goal with Mr. Sovich and the donations he's getting is this year is to look at Lab 203, put the equipment in there, get the stuff that he's getting money for, design that whole Class 203, ask Aaron Parkinson and a team to look at changing part of the library or all the library to a learning commons area, which will tie into that, where kids can be on their Chromebooks, go in there, hook up, design something. Teachers can have small group presentations. So that whole idea then from 3rd through 8th grade, kids are getting STEM experience, but they're also getting creativity and innovation. And whether they're going to be an engineer or not, they're, I'm a big believer in interest equals effort. That's the way I was taught to teach. If you're not interested in something, you're not going to learn it. That goes back millions of years to our inner psyche. So we as a teacher have, we as teachers, we design lessons to make kids interested so they give effort. It may be reading something that's completely boring to them. But we as teachers have to design that. So this is an opportunity to get kids, maybe not that they're all going to be engineers, but at least they're going to start to see maybe something that they can do and create. And down the road, hey, I had that interest, I found an interest in that, and that's something I want to do. I could take engineering one class, maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. You know, I'll experience it. So, interest equals effort, creativity, innovation, 21st century skills where we're not the sage on the stage anymore as a teacher, we're the guide on the side. And I think that's kind of what Mr. Keeley's talking about. With a teacher that's in here, in this lab, is more the guide. Hey, you want to create, let's look at it, create it, experiment, fail. Failing is good. I hate, failing is okay. I mean, and then you learn and you go on. But, I mean, we've got to start somewhere. We happen to get a grant. Let's start, let's have a vision. By the time we get to 16, 17, 17, 18, we have a full 3 through 8 program that hopefully school districts are jealous of. That they can come in and say, yeah, we committed some money, we did some guns and butter, and we committed to this, and this is what we have. So here's an option for kids, an opportunity. So, and I agree, reading is important, but kids have to learn how to read instruction manuals. They have to learn how to read how to change a tire. They got to read all kinds of things, not just Shakespeare. So, so kids want to read how to make something in 3D. They're going to have to read it first. They're going to have to understand it. They're going to have to get hands-on, engage their mind and their hands. So, again, it'll supplement reading. It'll supplement math, and that's what STEM is: science. Yes.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
What's the student count for this year? The total student count for 2014, 2015?
You mean total student count of the district?
Yes.
1749.
Okay, so we're going to see a decrease for next year anticipated.
It's the trend.
Okay. How many of the kids at the high school go to VOTEC next year or anticipate going to VOTEC?
Only about 12 to 20, I would say. We don't have those official numbers until the end of the night.
And how many kids are there now?
88, I believe, 89.
They were dropping from 88 down to,
You know, you asked how many are going to next year.
the 88, so. it
Yeah,
could
so
be
I don't know how many
100.
seniors are
We're looking
leaving.
at 100.
Yes, I don't know how many seniors are leaving. And then we'll be getting a new crop of 12 to 20. On average, so you have 3 grades up there, 88.
Right.
We'll probably have about 75 then next year.
Okay, out of the 260 that you break down for the high school for the guidance, is that including the VOTEC kids?
Once they leave,
Okay,
Once
so
they-
it doesn't count the,
no.
it doesn't count the ones that are thinking of going next year? So the 260 is not going to be too
Right,
bad.
it's on average about 260,
Okay.
9 through 12.
The STEM lab for the high school. So what you're saying is you're not budgeting any money this year for the STEM lab? Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay.
The equipment that we'll purchase this year from Mr. Sovich will go all through any grant money or fundraising money that he has. And then we'd have to look to, if we put a teacher on, to supplement the 16, 17.
Okay, so for the STEM slide that you had, the actual expense that you're looking at is just, you had the remodeling, the library and all that. That's nothing that's going into the budget this year, it's just the teacher that you have budgeted this year.
For the
For
parent.
the parent.
Yes, when that's one of the 4 retirements.
Okay.
So,
There will be some supplies, right? I mean, the consumables aren't part of the equipment.
The printing, I'm gonna call them cartridges, I've included that in my order. I've had several conversations with people from PTO. It's a lot of cardboard, it's a lot of wood, it's a lot of ceramic tile left over. So there's gonna be bits and pieces, but the plan is to kind of have a PTO sort of point person work real close with me and that teacher and sort of collect those things from the community, because I think a lot of this is gonna be scrap. One of the things I said to a lot of people, and I don't remember exactly what I said here in the presentation, but how cool would it be, and I'm not making promises it's gonna happen, go home with it. How cool would it be that, you know, in kindergarten, you get that typical silhouette on the piece of paper, black cutout, and in third grade, you come home with your silhouette laser engraved on a piece of ceramic tile product. That's pretty cool. You know, I'm not saying that it's some great engineering miracle. I'm saying that's kind of neat. I don't remember. I can send you the whole budget if you want, but I don't remember. Like, it's just, there's a lot. I can send you the whole thing.
Well, I'd like to know because that's gonna be a reoccurring charge. I mean, that's a reoccurring fee. In order to use the printer, you have to have the cartridges. So we get to know a fee that's gonna be, and how much you can get out of it, and that would depend on the project, right? Understand the Again, I'm not against it, but you're talking about hiring one for Perry, then next year one for Hartman, and then possibly one or two then for Lincoln. If you're talking about 4 classes, having engineering 1, 2, 3, and 4.
You would need one at high school.
So you
That would
just,
take care of the 7th and 8th grade exploratory classes that are part of the rotation, and then that same person would teach the high school classes.
and then how many
You could teach as many as 7 periods in a day.
Okay.
So, and if a class is a semester class, that would be, say, the 4 engineering 1 through 4. And remember, first year you do it, you're not having engineering 3 and 4. Most kids gonna get is engineering 1 the first semester, engineering 2 the second semester. There will be no 3 and 4 until the next year of schedule. So that would open up, if it took 2 periods to do the exploratory 7th and 8th grade, you're looking at 5 periods. If they're semester classes, that'd be 10 sections of engineering 1 or engineering 2. So one person can do that. And if you recall, we're down to 1 basement technology teacher. We used to have 2. Right? We used to, well, 3 at one point when I started here. 2 mainly. And the last time somebody retired, we did not replace it, and we're down to 1 basement teacher who's teaching.
what are you referring to?
The old wood shop, we don't have a metal shop anymore, we don't teach that, that was gone. The current technology teacher in the basement has wood tech classes, welding, has robotics, AutoCAD, and tech drawing, and then 2 exploratory periods for 7th and 8th grade. Takes care of all that. We used to have 2 down there mainly, and then we had the metal shop and other welding. We used to have a small gas engines class. We don't offer any of that anymore. So really replacing the STEM teacher is really just going back 5, 6 years ago when we used to have it, and now it's just a different mode. It's not the small gas engines class or welding, it's STEM class.
But we could probably still offer those things. I mean, those-
Well, then I would have less periods. Well, that, and that's the thing, I'm not guaranteeing anybody's not gonna go to VOTech, but you could maybe salvage some if we offer that.
Well, I'm kind of confused. At our meeting last month, some board members were vocal about being upset that we're not offering more electives, and maybe we need to look at if we need to increase staff to offer more electives for our kids. And now here's an opportunity to do something cutting edge that a lot of schools, don't have, that opens a whole new avenue for all this other higher level learning. And now we're bickering about whether we want to invest in a teacher. We're sending mixed signals. I mean, how's the administration supposed to know what they're supposed to do if you, in one breath, we're saying,
You're talking
let's-
elementary versus high school. There's a very big difference at this point. We're not, we're talking about hiring the Perry teacher, not a high school teacher to put those electives in.
That's the way you want to boil it down, but we're talking about opening up new avenues for new learning and new programs.
But that's, what I would like to see that done now at the high school, because the high school is where it's most needed at this point.
That's your opinion. I think that, to start it off at a younger level and let it grow, makes perfect sense to me.
Well, sure it does, but are we gonna be able to hire 3 teachers over the next 3 years? Are we gonna have the funds to do it? It's not that I don't wanna do it, but, I mean, next year we're talking about hiring one for Hartman, and the following year you're talking about hiring one at the high school.
I never said that we need to hire one department.
Well,
I like the way you're
talking about
thinking, I like the way you're
doing
thinking, I'm willing to take one department, but, I think year one, the teacher could be full-time at Perry and really start to figure things out. Year two, I think it's an easy sort of travel situation where that person could be working in both places and, you know,
So then you're looking at this as being like an elective, like a class like when Mr. Scotchless goes in and teaches computer, they're going, all the classes are going to go rotate through once a week and have this class?
the,
Okay, then I don't understand what this teacher's doing, besides being in there. How are all
like I
these
said,
kids funneling
I can
through?
imagine this being like a high school environment, a high school library environment. When I taught here at the high school, there were multiple ways to have kids in the library. One of them was the teacher could schedule the class in there to work on a project.
But isn't that exactly what you just said when I said, when you have the teachers, why can't we train our teachers to go in, that there would be a great injustice done because some would
Right,
utilize
and they're
it?
gonna work cooperatively with the expert on the,
But you're gonna have the same thing, those teachers that are more cutting edge are gonna be utilizing that much more frequently than the other ones who are maybe more old school and don't understand it or don't wanna enter it into their curriculum. So if you don't make it fair across the board for all the kids, then they're not all gonna have the same access.
I'm having trouble finishing the thought, I'm gonna say that, because every time I try to say something, I get stopped.
Sorry.
I don't even know what I was gonna say, so, I don't. If you wanna repeat your question, I'll answer anything you want. I think I have a good vision of this. If you don't want it, if we're fighting about it, it's okay, but I see this as something that is great for kids. I don't see this as, I see the person in the lab as being someone who can help collaborate with teachers and help these projects grow. Kids are not all gonna get exactly the same experience, it's not gonna be as special. But having a professional in there is gonna close that gap a little bit between the teachers who are super tech savvy and the teachers who are super old school. It's gonna close that gap, because if we just let it be the Wild West, then the tech savvy kids or teachers, and their kids are gonna get everything. So I can imagine teachers schedule their class in there on a as-needed basis. I can imagine kids dropping in there when there's time in their schedule and before after school. Again, like the library was here at Lincoln when I was a teacher.
Okay, I heard exactly what you said, and my point I still go back to when I said about having the teachers utilize that, you said that there would just be this unfair usage of it, because you say some teachers will utilize it more. Well, what you're saying is, in a sense, the same thing, was my point that I was trying to bring out. Because those teachers that are more savvy or more, more cutting edge are gonna be the ones that utilize it. So, in a sense, you're still at the same thing. I mean, I understand why, of course, it's always great to have a specialist there to tell you how to use it, a teacher to teach it. Who wouldn't want that? I mean, we all look for guidance in learning something new. But you still are going to have the thing that you first of all said that you didn't want to happen. That's why you wanted the teacher.
I don't see it that way, but that's fine.
Yes, sir.
I understand Mr. Petrelli's point here, but we all know we're behind in technology. Since we don't have an extra $1 million a year to put into this is your plan to get us there.
Correct.
What you're saying is the hiring of a STEM teacher for high school right now wouldn't be the most efficient way.
No.
So that's why you're recommending, if we
It's
have
there,
a plan.
build it up.
5, 10 years down the road, we will be at the forefront. Is that,
That's the plan.
okay, that's all, just so I understand. All right.
And we got a break. We got a $50,000 grant that a lot of schools didn't get. So let's
So we have
utilize
a
it.
plan to get there using the funds we have available.
Yes.
And the Forge is on duty, on board with waiting another year?
Well, not, if you look, 2015-16, this year, equip that lab. Equip that at 203 now, equip whatever is needed down in the downstairs. Equip it now, get the equipment in there, look at the learning commons, and then as we get to this point next year, we'll have a teacher in the budget for 16-17.
So they've agreed to the changes that Mr. Sovich.
He's working with them. We just met last week, we met and we said, here's what we'd like, let's get this going. So John is working on that. I told him, I said, I want a month-by-month plan from now till this ending point, a timeline of how this is gonna play out, and you working with these organizations to get this done. So that's where we're at.
So we're still not positive on everything, we're still.
We filled out a $25,000 grant through AIU3 last Thursday for STEM.
I was referring to the.
No, but that's part of it
Right.
too. That's not just them, it's other grant money. He's working with AIU3, so I gotta believe what he's telling me.
That first
So-
grant that they applied for, never, nothing, we just didn't get it?
No, they didn't get it because he said they included too many school districts and it just didn't happen.